Hey, Deborah, how are you?
I'm good, and I think that everyone might be absent today, but we might have some new people because somebody at a group that I belong to said she had signed up. So maybe she will get the recording if she can't come for real, and that's fine too. I'm going to talk about a wonderful program that I attended, hosted by Red Rover yesterday, that Peggy Hoyt, who is a board certified specialist with will and trust, but she's also the daughter of a gentleman who I didn't know, but who ran the HSUS. So as a child, she was very involved with animals. So now, as a trust and estate attorney, and ironically, she went to the law school, one of the law schools that I made when I applied. It was my safe school, Stetson in
Hmm.
Florida, and she went there. So she also got her MBA there, and I think they do a lot of things online. So that's great. But she was talking about, making a plan. She said, "Can you trust your pet?" Of course, with a pet trust. And there was a lot of discussion at the end on how much we can't trust people who we put in charge of our pets. And it really hurt my heart because the people who are appointed as caregivers um, really need to be people who you have a good feeling about. One
Sure.
woman, Madeline, said, "Listen, I'm sending my pets out to best friends in Utah." And I'm sitting there going, if they are couch potatoes and they're 11 years old, is it really right to send them to best friends where they're going to be in a kennel for the rest of their lives? I mean, it amazes me. It's sort of, when I have conversations with pet owners, um, when they want to put the dogs to sleep, no matter what age they are, if they pass away because they don't want to take that chance. As I said, it really hurts my heart to have people feel that there is absolutely no one who can make this pet's life livable if I'm not there to take care of it. It'll never be like being with me because, as you know, when you had your dog and I have my dogs, we spoil them rotten and we do certain things. But that doesn't mean, hi, Connie, but that doesn't mean that they're, not able to thrive. So, Connie, I can't wait to chat with you today because I think that Diane isn't going to be here. We might have some new people
Oh, great.
who signed up, but I'm not sure. But maybe they'll listen to the recording. But two things came up for me, and I know this is so important for you. So yesterday, Red Rover offered a program, they hosted it for a woman who I'm friends with on LinkedIn, Peggy Hoyt, who her father was the head of HSUS. I don't remember someone named Hoyt, but it might have been way
I don't
before.
either.
Um, but she loves, animals, and so she has a trust and estate firm, and she also created the first animal trustee firm. So you can hire them to be your trustee for your pet trust, which is
Hmm.
sort of great. She said she wrote the only book that's on pet trusts, which um, I think maybe she said the first book, and maybe it is the first book, but I know that my dear and unfortunately deceased colleague Rachel Hirschfeld actually wrote the first book and created PS on LegalZoom, a process whereby you can make a pet protection agreement that's got some really good benefits beside pet trust. Pet
Hmm.
trust, if somebody who is your trustee gets in financial trouble, they can sometimes take your funding. I raise my hand. I am not a trust and estate aficionado. That's why I work with everyone's trust and estate attorney to make it correct. But the thing I took away from this woman was dedicated to helping people make pet trusts. She
Hmm.
was not dedicated as I am to making it something that sits outside of a pet trust so that you refer to it, which of course saves you money. And Connie, I know your attorney and I worked together for such a long time,
Right.
uh, making sure that what you built could be changeable outside the will so you didn't have to keep paying her
Hmm.
to make a will
Right.
or a
And
trust.
Cynthia was so grateful because she said, I mean, she has dogs, but she said that she has so many clients who have asked her about what do I do about my animals if something happens to me, blah, blah, blah. So she said she really enjoyed collaborating with you.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So this was a program put on by Red Rover, and went through all the, now I understand why the Nassau or Suffolk County Bar Association pet trusts, well, the trust and estate people who, you remember, I asked them how many of you have pets, they all raised their hand. How many of you have made plans
Zero.
in will? And, you know, half of them raised their hand, and then pet trust, none. I said, so how are you going to sell it to you? They didn't want to learn about how to encourage clients to build a pet trust. They just wanted to know the nuts and bolts, which of course, you know, it's law school all over again.
Yeah.
You need to know the nuts and bolts. It's
Right.
not about the emotion. And of course, the only reason people make pet trusts is because of emotion.
Of
They don't
course.
make pet trusts because, well, it's something I got to do. I mean, they don't make wills because it's something they've got to do. They have to have an emotional attachment
Exactly.
to that. So I'm going to check in with everybody. Of course, it's only you and I today, Connie, but that's okay. Sally was taking her nephew for a COVID test. Hopefully it'll be negative.
Oh,
And of course, our good friend is working, Diane.
right.
And I
Right.
am going to go to, I think, 7 p.m. Do you think that's late enough? 5, 6, 7. That's 5 o'clock.
7 p.m. It's 4 o'clock our time,
Oh, 4.
which is
That,
actually great for
okay, great.
us. Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm going to push it to 7 p.m., see how it works, see if other people will come. I'm hoping that some of the people, I'm trying to figure out how to invite the people that you and Diane compete with, not compete, but, you know, train with.
Right.
No, I can't throw a party because of course we can't throw a party, but I'd love to throw a party and be there to answer their questions, because there were about 16 people on this webinar. And I said, these are 16 people who are learning how to do something the most rote way and not necessarily the best way. It was interesting because it was more, and I'm reaching out to Peggy because it was more a case of the trustee was in charge and not necessarily the pet parents. And there was a real bias. I was telling Rose before you got on, there was a real bias that you can't trust people who you leave to care for your pets. And I think you caught the tail end when I said you really need to be able to trust those people. And I'd hate to think that I couldn't find someone to take care of my pets and put them to sleep when I die because I can't find someone to care for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's almost better to just leave them, you know, catcher's catch can than to schedule their death. I've actually had, I can tell you, 5 clients who've come and said, I want to make a MAP plan, and when I go, I want the pets to be put to sleep. And of course, the mediator in me goes, you know, that's always a choice. And I recognize and understand that nobody's going to take care of the pet the way Deborah does. Nobody, because, you know, I take care of my pets a certain way. However, they can thrive in a different environment.
Yes, they can. And having been in rescue as long as I have, I know that for a fact. And sometimes the second home is better than the first.
And funny, the word rescue, a lot of us bristle at that because it's not a rescue, especially when, and I don't know, I know that you don't breed, but as a breeder, there are times when I'll
No, I do breed.
Oh, okay. So sometimes
I
they'll
got
be
3 generations at my feet.
right. So if you have several dogs, so I at one point had 13, and there were 2 or 3 friends of mine who lost their older Irish, and you know, I would like to go and live with them and have them take care of me.
Right.
And so I let my kids go, and one of them would often refer to rescuing the dog, and I had to pull her aside and say, excuse me, she was not tied to the mailbox, you know, free to a good home. It was because you were a good friend of mine. And I knew that she would thrive one-on-one, and why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I share the wonders? Like Sally always comments, when I moved, I had her take the dachshund, which of course she has had a few of my Irish, but she's never had a dachshund. And she will tell you, and we'll ask her next time when she comes on, if I remember, and you remind me, she could not believe how phenomenal it was to have a dachshund. Of course, I kept telling her it pees all over the floor, and so be careful because it's a hound, and you know, we will say no more.
But it's also the most terrier of the hounds too.
It is.
It's an earth dog.
Yes. So they're very busy, and they choose not to. Well, let's say 50% of the time they choose not to
Not
learn
to
how to be
listen.
housebroken. Housebroken is an option, and if it's not checked, I think in the first 8 weeks you're dead to the world. They'll just
Right.
never. So she had Buffy, and she said, "My God, I cannot tell you," because of course we lost Buffy while she was with them, and she said, "I can't tell you how devastated I was." And when she first came, I was like, "What is this little dog?" And then I realized why she was so important to you. And so Buffy, I was heartbroken, that she was still with Sally and Gordon, and I was still transitioning, and so I didn't take her back. And that I was there when we let her go, but I wasn't there the last 4 or 5 months of her life because I was moving.
Right.
And I have to tell you that Buffy probably, I mean, it was interesting to tell you a story and to tell everyone who listens to this later a story. When I would go up to see, of course, Athena and Buffy while they were with Sally, they both go out to the car when I was leaving. Okay, we're here. And I'd look at both of them and say, they grill salmon for you, and you want to come home and eat dog food. So what type of brainless animals are you?
Right. Right.
And you've heard of that, right?
Oh, no, absolutely no question. And in fact, yes, we do rescue in our breed club, and I've been rescue chair. And in fact, we have spun it off from our main breed club as a separate 501c3 for all sorts of reasons.
Right, there are, and it's better.
And it's much better for the club. It's much better for the, for
as long as everybody continues to collaborate, because sometimes when they spin off, like one of the Golden Retriever groups spun off and then became a fiefdom, and the Golden Retriever Club of America won't have anything to do with them, but then there's no oversight. So I digress and I apologize, but
that's quite all right. But at any rate, when we rehome them, very often the second home will be much better than the first home, which was why the dog was surrendered in the first place. And in most cases, not all, because there are deaths and divorces and all the
and overages. I always say to people when they're looking for an older dog, I said, go to a dog show, speak to some of the breeders there, get to know them, and let them know that you're looking, because a lot of us prefer to let our really good dogs who we love, and this is an enigma to some people. However, if I give you one of my beautifully bred dogs who is beautifully mannered, and you have a phenomenal life with them, and you're home all day long and taking care of them, and at the time I was working full time, why wouldn't I give them the opportunity to be one of one instead of one of 13? My mantra for my dogs is, it's not about me, it's about them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And in fact, there are breeders who, for instance, keep a particular dog in their home, finish the dog, and it doesn't turn out to be what they want in their breeding program.
And that's so shallow, but really it isn't. So, but yeah, I get it.
And so, in fact, they would call me in breed rescue, and we would do what we termed a breeder assist to try to place a retired show dog who was not wanted in a breeder program, and the dog would be spayed or neutered, right. And and then placed as a pet.
It's so hard to explain that to pet owners, because how could you ever? What kind of person are you? And I'm sitting there, and
no, I personally would not do it, but
right. Yeah, but if there was someone you knew, like Sally, for many years, and that they grill salmon for their dogs, as I said, I would prefer to go live with her and leave the dogs here with my husband, but alas, she hasn't asked or offered to foster me. So, but it's been done for years and frowned upon, because I don't think mostly people understand. You understand for breeder assist, and whether or not we choose to do it is always our choice. But those dogs often, and I think you'll bear this out, those dogs often go, holy shit, I have hit the lottery. I was here. It was nice. I am here. It is wonderful.
It is wonderful. I don't have to go to a dog show ever again.
Right. And some of them like to go to a dog show. I actually placed the dog with an 85-year-old woman. And she had spondylosis, so I was never going to breed her, and she was going to be my brood bitch, and it was very disappointing. But this 85-year-old woman called the day I learned that a member of the Irish Setter Club of Central Connecticut, had been re-diagnosed with cancer, 5 years cancer-free, and then re-diagnosed, and it was ravaging her. So a colleague of mine called after this woman called. So the 85-year-old woman called and said, I'd like an Irish setter. And she said, and please don't hold my age against me. And I'm hoping nobody ever holds my age against me either.
Me too.
And so I knew that I don't know if you know what spondylosis is, but it's a fusing of the spine. It starts at the tail, goes up the back. So Violet wasn't jumping on anyone. Not going to happen. So she was like a perfect dog for an 85-year-old. So this woman called, and then I went to a party for a friend of mine, and my friend walked up and said, listen, you know, Beth is ill again, and she's asked for someone to take Caitlin. And Caitlin was 2 or 3 at the time. Maybe she was 2. And she said, Caitlin probably, you know, will fit into your home if you're willing to try her. And she's got a great pedigree and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know, let me talk to Beth. So I did. And it was interesting when I look back on it that the angels had said to me, you know, this is going to happen. It's like rain and men here. I don't know who this is, so they'll have to leave a message because they're not supposed to call it at 12 o'clock on Wednesday. She said, absolutely, I want you to take her, but don't come back and visit her, which I thought was a little bad because, you know, how long would that take? But in any event, I took Caitlin in December, and I placed Violet with the 85-year-old probably in November. And all they kept saying to me was, we've had Irish all our life, but we've never had an Irish like this. They said, she is just so well behaved, so well mannered, so lovely. The only thing, and breeders sometimes find this. So you said they don't ever have to go to a show again. Well, some of them really like to go to shows. And so when I would bring Violet home once a month to groom her and grind her nails and do everything, she wouldn't want to get back into the truck because here she was. Here I thought it was a perfect. They had 2 acres, fully fenced, and in and outdoor. They were home all the time, and she went everywhere with them. But she'd never been alone before. So you have to think about that when you're thinking about making a plan for your pet. What are they used to?
Well, none of mine has ever been alone before, starting with Grammy Bammy, who's 10 years old. I mean, she grew up with my boy Magoo, who died 4 years ago at the age of almost 13, and he was 6.5 when I brought her home. She was my foundation bitch. In fact, right. I picked her up the day that I retired from Northrop Grumman. So none of my dogs has ever been without
another dog
in the house.
And I have to tell you, that's something. So if you're making a MAAP plan, and remember, the A is address the needs of the pet.
All my dogs it is preferable to place them together if at all possible. That's
and recognize that if someone can't,
right.
that they will have separation anxiety more than likely. We can't predict 100%, but I know, Athena fit into Sally and Gordon's life because Buffy was there, and now that Buffy's gone, she's so used to Sally and Gordon, she isn't having withdrawal from being, an only pet. But it really is very interesting. So when you're making your plan for your pet, remember the M starts for making a plan, and the A is address your pets. And this is for those people who are maybe watching later on. And the other A is appoint caregivers. And as Peggy Hoyt in the Trust seminar yesterday said, you have to pick caregivers that are really good caregivers. And it was, as I started to say and almost finished, was it is really heartbreaking to me and hurts my heart that one of the women on the call, one of the women on the call said she was going to send her dogs to Best Friends. And it's not that I have anything against Best Friends. God, no. Wonderful, wonderful organization. But if you're a couch potato like my guys and your guys, Connie, and then you go to Best Friends where you're living in a kennel just because they're really good and people are there all the time, but they're still in kennels.
That's
and
right.
They're not a kennel dog. I mean, our dogs go into kennels and our dogs go into crates because they go to dog shows.
That's
they don't
right.
live there. They don't live there.
They don't live there. Mine sleep on the bed with me at night.
So it really is, it's interesting. So ours sleep with us at night. I went to an independent living facility in La Jolla. I think I've told this story before. And I spoke to about 40 people who had little dogs because they're allowed 20-pound dogs. And they said, well, we don't know what to do. Our kids don't want our dog. What do we do? I said, do you take the dog for a walk? And they go, yeah. I said, does anybody ever stop and pet the dog? Well, yeah. Well, speak up. Say, hey, Connie, I know you love Fluffy. Do you have a dog? No, I don't have a dog. If something happened to me, could you take Fluffy short-term, long-term? Like if I go into the hospital for a colonoscopy and I have to stay overnight because I'm high risk or something. You never know. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Did I know, Connie, that's what you did. You checked out people close by, far away, who would be able to take care of you.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And that's the only way to fly. And it's more critical now that I'm on my own. And I think about that.
And more critical now with COVID, because you have to have that lady down the street, because if you had a lady who was in, nearby in Nevada or nearby in, whatever, New Mexico, you couldn't get there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that a very dear friend, in fact, she is normally my competition obedience instructor. She's a rally and obedience judge and has a 10-year-old Belgian Turf, was all signed up to get a pup. And she was going to go to Colorado and pick up the pup, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And she thought, my God, that's like a 2-day drive. Where am I going to stay? And she's in her 50s. She's a psychology professor.
She's a baby.
I know she's a baby. I know. Yes, right. But at any rate, she has some underlying medical conditions, and she was terrified. So she had to back out of the puppy. Yeah. And I don't know if you saw in my news feed on Facebook, but last night I posted an article that was sent to me by a very good Wheaton friend who lives in Orange County, who's been very involved in fact, she was on the national board with me several years ago. She sent me an article, a news article, that a dog at North Carolina State Vet School died of COVID.
Yeah.
That was contracted from its owner who had tested positive. So it definitely is a zoonotic disease.
Was that the German Shepherd? Because there were German Shepherds, they were exposed. One of them passed away, who wasn't that old.
Right.
Actually, the older one survived it, and the younger one didn't survive it. I mean, maybe he was 6 years old and 10 years old, if my memory serves me, which it might not. But yeah, it's all about underlying conditions. It's all about, how you react. And it's the other thing that's really scary is that COVID now has left people with long-lasting disabilities, not just, I got the flu and I'm better now. I think I read that some of the football players have had long-term heart issues coming up with having COVID. So and
they had been previously healthy.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm sure you've had colleagues, and I know I've had a number of colleagues who said, this is just a waste of time. We just need to get back to normal. And I'm like, well, there is nobody, and Connie, I know you'll raise your hand too. There's nobody who wants to get back to normal faster than I do. However, I think that ignoring this risk is foolhardy because it really is you're going to need a MAP plan because you're going to die. I mean, if I can say it more bluntly, no, I can't. I mean,
well, no one gets out of this
world alive, but you don't want to rush it with COVID. And as we have been here since the end of March, having these conversations, we've gone through all the newspaper articles that showed that the ASPCA was going into people's homes 2, 3, 5 days after they left, maybe even longer, and the pets have been left alone because nobody, when you're going to the doctors to get a COVID test, you don't know that your oxygen levels, because as you know, and I'm sure Diane would have bore out if she was here, you sometimes don't recognize your oxygen levels are dangerously low.
Right.
And they will admit you, and then what do you do? Humana. Right.
And they don't give you an option. They say, you're going upstairs right now. Right.
Right. So, if you have, like you said, so the blessing of owning a purebred dog is that almost all, I don't think any of the purebred dog groups, the national groups, don't have some connection to a rescue, either their own or they facilitate with one that specifically works with Irish setters, Wheaten Terriers. So you need to really know who they are. Those are the remaindermen who you want to get your dog. If the 3 or 4 people you've appointed to have your dogs, if in fact something happens to you, can't take your dog. And let's hope that's not key.
Right.
Remember now with COVID, you have to have somebody up the street. And you know
Absolutely.
what I did was put 3x5 cards in the mailbox so they knew I was here and I would help them and hopefully they would help me.
Yeah.
And making sure that you create this document and check it. So I know, Connie, you are religious, which I'm so grateful as being one of my proteges, that you're religious in checking if these people can still take your dogs, because that, set it and forget it, not MAP plan.
Well, unfortunately, my best friend is one of them, and I talk with her at least once a day, if not 3 times a day. And the others are there's only one who lives in Ventura, but I connect with her quite often. She's a Wheaton breeder friend, and the others are in my obedience club, and they're local. In fact, one is literally up the street and around the corner. So I'm very fortunate, and I'm also very fortunate that in addition to a national breed club rescue, we have the local rescue. But with a lot of breeds, they may just have the national club rescue, and that's it. Or else people live in regions of the country where they don't have a big enough breed population to have a local club.
Right.
So, if you're in one of the flyover states, which you and I are not, but if you're in one of the flyover states in the Midwest, you're stuck.
It's really interesting you said that, because it is important to know that there are ways to get dogs from non-flyover states like yours and mine. You just simply have to start with the national club. And
Right.
Sometimes there'll be somebody nearby you who can help. There's always, almost always, a member who can be reached out to help you if you have a dog and you can't keep it, or if you want a dog and you want to be part of the group. And there's a form to fill out, and you have to, meet certain standards.
Right.
And the dog has to be spayed and altered.
Right. And we have all of that.
Yeah, because it's really important for us to support our breeds. It's really important for us to support educating people who want our breeds, because Wheaton Terriers are very special, as are Irish Setters, very special. I think I was supposed to have an article in on the 11th, which was yesterday, but it's not, on, what is the benefit of Irish Setters? It really is something that's a breed type unlike golden retrievers. I have several friends who have golden retrievers, and I said, I'll put up with the rollicking personality over the amount of hair. And I know you don't have a hair issue with your dogs because they're terriers, right?
Well, no, we do, because they are the only, hence their name, soft-coated Wheaton Terrier. They are the only single-coated, soft,
Terrier.
coated breed that really that is a terrier that really has a sheepdog coat, because that's what they were bred to do. They were farm dogs.
Yeah.
And they still have the herding instinct. And I am proud to say that I worked with our National Breed Club with AKC to get herding eligibility for them. And
good for you.
My boy Magoo actually had a herding title. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
That's like tracking. Tracking is also like, forget it. But it's so much fun, but it's like, forget it. But I did that when I was much younger.
The good news about these guys, much like many of the sporting breeds, the Spaniels and the Setters, at least that I've had as a kid, is that they shed in clumps.
They shed in clumps in the corner. So you can just go into the corner or under the couch. They don't go on your clothes.
No. Well, no, I have, lint rollers in everywhere, including in my tack bag for my shows, so that I'm, not all full of hair on my black slacks as I walk in front. But
is that the young kid?
Yeah, it's the young kid who's wrestling with mom on my feet, which are in flip flops. So I'm getting my toes danced on.
Yes.
But good California girl that I am. But my sister in the Bay Area has had Goldens ever since way back when she was in Boston as a pediatrics nurse at Mass General. So in fact, I took 2 of my Wheatons up to the Northern California specialty, and stayed with my it was one of the specialties in the Bay Area. And I stayed with my sister Pat, and my two Wheatons were sneezing all over the place from the dander. They were allergic to my sister's dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, if you love Goldens, you love Goldens. My sister had Goldens, and I had them for a little while, and my husband had a Golden for a little while before he found his way to a wonderful family, which loved him much better than I, because I looked at him like, oh my goodness, this dog needs a lot of, it's really interesting. So you're talking about the coat care, and of course, because Wheatons have this soft coat, it requires a great deal more care than, say, a Schnauzer. I mean, you
Oh,
have to roll the
absolutely.
coats of a Schnauzer, but because you have long coat, it's a big care, and it's part of why you want to become a member of a Wheaton Terrier Club or an Irish Setter Club, so you can learn how to take care of these dogs.
Absolutely. And we have grooming seminars all the time as a consequence. Oh, yeah.
Yep, yep. So I'm going to wrap up now because I have one more thing to do at the end of this half hour. But I want to make sure that everyone who listens, who gets the recording, knows that I am going to be holding another one of our wonderful map planning sessions, October 16th and 17th. So put that on your calendar, because we had such a good turnout for the last one that I'm definitely going to do it again. I also want to let people know that if you want to work with me individually, I have 3 people who've been writing to me to work with me individually, and it's expensive, but it's worth it, of course. But there's also the do-it-yourself, which is the blueprint program that you can basically do yourself. You watch the videos, you do it yourself, and that's really reasonable at $375. So you can either come to our conference that we're going to hold for 2 days. It's 2 hours on the 16th and 2 hours on the 17th. I know everyone is zoomed out. So we will do, 50 minutes and a 10-minute break, 50 minutes and a 10-minute break, 2 days in a row, and make sure that, and it'll probably be, 6 to 8 at night so that people can come, and maybe it'll be 7 to 9 on the East Coast, so that we can make sure that everybody is free to come. I'm so grateful, Connie, for you, and you're coming here, and you're continuing to support everyone understanding the need for this, because here I am trying to teach people about this, and I've written to all the clubs, and I'm hoping to hear back that they want to learn more about this. So I will let you know what I hear. But until we meet again next Wednesday, Connie Kohler, thank you so much. First of all, for being one of my star map plan students, and taking care of your dog so beautifully,
Thank
and
you. And thank you.
and for being here every week, because we do converse about things that educate. I mean, this is a community, and we educate each other on what's available to all of us with respect to mixed breeds or pure breeds. It doesn't really matter. We all want to make sure that if something happens to us, they're cared for.
Absolutely. And given that I have gone through a huge major life change over the past 2.5 years, and I'm now on my own, it makes it even more important.
Well, I appreciate it.
Your life changes in a second. It really
In a
does.
split second, absolutely. In a
Mine
split second. Yours changed twice in a split second. When your husband got sick, and then when the divorce happened, these are 2 split second changes.
That's
And
right.
thankfully you weren't sick, but oh my God, they still impact your life with your pets. So
Absolutely.
I so appreciate you being here. And until next Wednesday, when we are going to start our new time, it will be 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. California time, Pacific time, and then work your way back from there, everyone. But we are going to try evenings so that people and Connie, let me know what evenings are good for you, because I'm hoping Wednesday will work for you, but if everyone has training on Wednesdays, I'm going to move it because I'm not
Actually,
going to
I
miss
do.
you or Diane.
And I do. I have handling class that I'm getting back into with my pup. Even though we don't, all the shows out here have been canceled through January of next year. I still want to keep him busy. By the way, we sent in our 3 videos to AKC with our PayPal payment, of course, for his 3 legs of his rally novice. So I'm waiting to hear back.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So, but a lot of us are doing the virtual rally novice, and now we're going to do the rally intermediate with his mommy, who is licking my toes as we speak. And the turnout for those those titling opportunities is
Huge.
terrific. It is
Yeah.
huge. And in fact,
Because you can, and you train and then you videotape.
we train, and we have an informal rally group that's been together for years that is a subset of my obedience club. And we train in a park in Torrance, about 15 minutes away. And our former rally instructor, who's now just part of the group, sets up a course. And it's a nested course, so it goes from novice all the way up to excellent. And we just train every Friday afternoon. And so when the virtual video titling opportunity came up, I said, hey, why don't we all just do it, because we have the course set up every Friday. And so Stacy, our former instructor, offered to be the videographer, and she filmed all of us, and we're doing the same thing for Rally Intermediate.
Perfect.
So and there are some agility title opportunities. I think AKC is starting out with the lower end titles, and working up to the more advanced. To see how this works on an experimental basis. But everybody loves it.
Everybody working together to figure out new ways to deal with COVID and also keep active with their pets. So that's why you're here. Thank you all so much for being here. Remember, make a plan for your pet, address the needs of your pet, appoint caregivers, and then the most important, publish, because if nobody knows about it, it can't be brought forward. So this is Deborah Hamilton. Remember, we are having another weekend together, October 16th and 17th for 2 hours each day. And we're going to move our community next Wednesday to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. So hopefully more people will be able to join us. Thank you so much. Thanks, Connie. Have a great week.
You too, Deborah.
Bye, Rose.
Bye, Rose.